emotion, right? But how does that affect us? Am I sad and I feel like, it's been a really rough day and I just need to take a break? I'm not feeling so great. I'm going to take a break for an hour. Take a break, go to sleep and tomorrow will be better. Like, not feeling great today. Or is it like, oh my gosh, I feel so terrible, the world's going to end, I just want to kill myself. That's like intensity beyond what's normal for this given situation. And the duration is the same thing. Am I saying that, that's it, I can't, tomorrow will be a better day, I'm going to sleep? Or am I saying that that's it, I don't get out of bed for 6 months? Right? When we start to see significant changes in behavior patterns, we start to see significant changes in their relationships, particularly with their friends and their interests, that becomes cause for concern. Now, sometimes, again, it makes sense, sometimes there's real things happening, but the biggest thing that we can do as family, as friends, is engage. It's not to just say, hey, you need to space and back off, but to be able to sort of engage and say, hey, what's going on here? Is everything okay? Try to reach out. And with each different case, you'll have to figure out what makes sense. Doesn't mean that we breathe down people's necks. Sometimes people need a little bit of space, but to allow it to just progress when we see that there's changes happening, if something's hard and it's scary and we don't want to feel like we're pushing. So people need to know that you belong. You're part of this. And one of the big things with depression, there was, I think, in San Francisco, something they had a group, like a support group for depression, and tried to make a garden. And as they developed this garden, one of the participants said that as the garden grew, we grew. Because they started to feel like they're part of something. They belong to something. They're part of this tribe. And if we're apart and have space, and they will just start to come out of it and they start to feel like they belong. But the more that we isolate, we start to see those real changes in how we feel and how we act. What are we trying to do? We're trying to cope. We're trying to do, there's a joke about alcohol. Alcohol is not a problem. Alcohol is a solution. But there's truth to that. Because in reality, why are we drinking? Again, there's the teenage moments where we're at. There's the college life, and that's part of it. Most people don't stay within that. Like most addicts don't become addicts from that little bit of part. It becomes because there's something on there. They're trying to use it as a solution for whatever feeling, whatever anxiety is going on that's not letting them function in a healthy way. As they start to move towards that, they start to let go of some of the other things. And that's, of course, a concern for us. Do we have any Zoom questions?
Yeah, you can ask. Guys, if anybody has questions on Zoom, please feel free to ask.
Okay, so just before we jump to the Narcan, some of the preventive measures, like we talked about, not to the preventive, but in terms of the understanding of how all this develops. What are the risks? Obviously, we've talked a lot about that mental health illness and depression, anxiety, and being untreated. Because really, what is it? Again, it's our development, that if we didn't have it, if we didn't feel like we could be vulnerable or express our emotions as children, as we're developing, so, you be a man and tough it up, and we never felt that validation, then it became scary to do. We don't feel like we can ever do it, so we find other ways. But beyond that, there's this other piece that's going on, is, one of the big things that we talked about for the development of substance use issues is peer usage and perception of risk. Right? When we see our peers are using, when we see our parents are using, when we see our friends are using, then we're more likely to engage and to use. And the same thing with perception of risk. If we believe that what we're doing is safe, then we're more likely to use. Except that it gets away from us, and then there's a problem. We're living in a world where we're seeing that. But we're seeing that as, the times are changing, the legalization, and everything is safe, everything's okay, and we're not talking, we're not communicating, we're not seeing the other side of the story. We're not putting it in its context, right? And again, I did most of these teenagers, so what are we telling these kids? Well, they're going to learn it on their own, and they're seeing that, hey, this is all great. What messages are we sending when, or say you go on a business trip and you're so busy, and I'm the same, I'm away and I don't have time to shop for anything, no gifts, no anything, but you come home and you see this bottle I got in duty free, crazy. Then what does my kid learn? That's the most important thing. I don't know anything about him, I don't know what he likes, but I could tell you all the yichus of this bottle, right? So they have to be placed and have to be put into context about when it's appropriate, when it's not. But if I come home and after a long, hard, difficult day, my solution is to have, a couple of shots and just chill out, then what's he going to learn? If I'm having brownies at the kiddos and I'm smoking up and that works, and again, we could debate whether that's good for the adult or whether, right? But the reality is, across the board, one of the best videos I saw was, I don't know, one of the best videos, a advocate for marijuana, major advocate for marijuana, goes to the myths of marijuana. And he comes to this myth of marijuana, that marijuana is dangerous. And he's, he's presenting nicely. So, well, this was complicated. Because when it comes to adolescence, everybody agrees that the developing brain, developing emotional response, it's detrimental. But we're not saying that. We're showing our actions that this is okay, this is successful, that we're using. And we could argue that many of our adults that are engaging in that are not necessarily well adjusted, or not necessarily having this great, healthy relationship with their substances. But yet, we don't see that, and every kid thinks that they're that kid, or I'm going to be that guy. And then they engage it. So what do I learn? I learned that when things are too difficult, when it's hard to, deal with these emotions or this pain, or my rabbi or my parents, so then I drink or I drug or I do whatever else it is. Or I turn to my cell phone. We're the most connected and the most disconnected. We don't feel like we're part. We don't feel like we belong. At best, we fit in. But we're not authentic. We're not real. And therefore, we're not connected. So that's what we need to change. What we need to change is that sense that what's the message that we're giving? What's important in our lives? What matters to us? What are successful, healthy ways of communicating, of talking, and conveying how you feel, and of validation, of belonging? Because if you belong, if you're part of it, that's half the battle. If you feel connected. I run the app in the summer, and one thing we don't have phones, which is a crazy concept for 16, 17, 18-year-olds not to have cell phones for a full month. But I can tell you the difference in the human interaction, and the kids themselves recognize they're here, they're present. I just got the phone last night with a father whose son had to go to a facility for, again, I don't know the exact details, the internet addiction, technology addiction, cell phone addiction. This is the first time talking to my kid, it's a different person. It's a different person. He's there, connected. That's where we need to work the back. So we go into individual, what do we do with this, what do we do with that? But the concept, the idea, you're not connected, you don't belong, you don't fit in. If we have society that says you're not good enough, then they're going to look somewhere else to be good enough. They can feel connected, so they're going to substitute with a cell phone, with the internet, with pornography, with drugs, with alcohol, with whatever, and not with the one thing that they're lacking: human connection, belonging, connection. Without that, depression, anxiety, substance use, that's all interacted. But on the bright side, there is help, and treatment works. And it's a cycle, and it takes time, and there's no quick, easy answers. And sometimes the particular individual that's suffering isn't ready for the help. But none of these things, mental health, addiction, they're not really individual illnesses. They're family illnesses, they're community illnesses. Everybody's affected by it. But yet, we all don't want to talk about it. We always hear that illness is easier than anything. We're not putting that because people are dealing with illness when it's difficult, right? But at least people understand. We're still so far leaving all this in the shadows and the dark. We don't want to talk, we don't want to express. We don't feel like people can stand with us. I feel can accept it, to be okay, and we hide it, and then it blows up. There's help for the family that's suffering to get them support. There's direction, there's guidance for the individual who's suffering. And it takes time, and it's a cycle, and there's different stages, and there's, they talk about the cycle of recovery. Pre-contemplation, when they're not ready. So what can we do in that stage? When they're not really ready for change, not really ready to talk about change. The contemplation, when, maybe, but not really ready to do anything, to at least acknowledging it. And sometimes they go back and forth, and you have one day, okay, but if we understand it, if we're connected, we're willing to go the distance, we're willing to stand with them and stand by them and believe in them, and they can believe in them. And if they could believe in them, we could come out the other side. Because together, we're stronger, we're valued, we belong. We belong. The human race is there's lots of animals that are much bigger than us, much stronger than us, much faster than us, yet we survive and we thrive because we have tried, because we are connected. We survived as Jews for 3,000 years because we have each other. And if we're losing that, if we don't belong, that's what we have to fight. Because then we could deal with everything else.
So, in my years of healthcare, I've noticed that a lot of people who do suffer from depression, maybe anxiety, misery, I feel like many of them like it. They don't want to leave living like that for whatever reason. How do you deal with a person like that? Basically, a person who loves the misery, who doesn't want to escape it.
Excuse me?
There are people like that, and I've seen it many times.
Are they, when you listen, do you think that they're enjoying it, they want it, or